I don't know if you ever have had anyone in your life like this. Somebody who it's really hard to wrap up a conversation with. That they just you'll try to give them hint after hint after hint. Okay, I got to go. All right. It's good talking with you. I'll catch you later. Right? And they just keep going. I don't know if you have anyone in your life like that. Sometimes they just, will keep the conversation going. My grandfather was legendary in this manner for our family. And he would do the thing where when you were visiting, you would walk out to your car and he would walk out to the car with you, continuing the conversation. He would get in the car, he would stand next to the car, keep talking, and as you were backing out of the driveway, he would put his hand on the car and keep talking as you were driving out of the driveway. And so we always had to how rude would it be if I just punched it for a second just to get out of the driveway, leave him standing there, but also I have to leave, or do we just kind of go 1 mile an hour back on the driveway for 3 minutes to end this conversation? It was always a challenge with my grandpa, and I didn't think there was anyone else like that. And then I met a colleague of mine, another priest, and he does the same thing. He'll talk you through when you're backing out of the driveway or trying to, as you walk to your car, he'll stand there and keep talking. It's one of those one more thing type of conversations that somebody must feel like they need to have. Our first reading today is kind of the Jesus and the disciples version of the one more thing conversation. As Jesus is getting ready to leave and he's telling them, it's time for me to go back to my Father in heaven. The work that needs to be done now, you're going to do it. And they have a million questions, how are we going to do it? What are we supposed to do? He says, trust me, the Spirit will come and it will lead you and guide you. Just wait for the promise. Pray, wait for the promise. Okay, so Jesus is walking and he's going to the mountain where he's going to bless them and then say goodbye for now. And they do, one more thing. One more thing. The big question that they've just never been able to get out of their mind. It is born from a political anxiety that they have. Is this the time when you will restore the kingdom of Israel? Is this the time, finally, Lord, when the Spirit comes and you give us the power to know what to do, is that the time when you're going to restore the kingdom? It doesn't just say, will you kind of set Israel free from the Romans? It's, will you restore the kingdom? Because their thinking is this. God's ultimate goal is always and will only be to restore Israel to the kingdom it was under David. So everything God does has to work to that end. So Jesus, at some point, you're going to have to do this. And so, right? I mean, we were with you. We waited through the crucifixion and the resurrection. Now, is this the time when you're going to do the thing for the kingdom now? And the way Jesus answers them is really helpful for us. If we live in a time or when we struggle with kind of questions born from political anxiety, which I think is a fair thing to say that we carry at times. Certainly kind of culturally as a people, we carry a lot of political anxiety. And Jesus is helpful in his response to the disciples in and redirecting, how God's trying to redirect us when we get kind of just focused on our own political anxiety. So I want you to notice 3 things that Jesus does in his answer, three things he's calling the disciples to have in their question, in his response. And the first is, you're going to notice his first words, it's not for you to know. That's a really nice way that Jesus says it's none of your business, right? I mean, kind of is, right? It's not for you to know. It's you didn't think an answer to prayer could be none of your business, but we learned today that none of your business could be an answer to prayer because the disciples, Jesus is requiring them to have a little humility, just like he's asking us when we get kind of full of political anxiety, have a little humility and understand that maybe if there's things in this world we don't quite understand or we can't figure out, we could say, hey, God, I know everything. You're not doing it right. so you're unfair. Or we could say, hey, God, I don't know everything. Maybe there's some things here going on that I don't quite understand or that are beyond me. And have a little humility to trust that maybe maybe God's doing more than we think he is. Or maybe there is a reason for some of the things that God does or allows even. Now, if we could go back to the disciples and tell them with a little historical hindsight, we might be able to say, you hated the Romans. You wanted the Romans to no longer be over the people of Israel and to be over the Roman Empire. You wanted the kingdom of Israel back because you thought God's ultimate goal was just to create this little kingdom on earth of his people. But God's goal is actually the salvation of the whole world. And maybe the Romans, with their roads and with their common language and common administration, are in some way serving God's greater purpose, even though they don't even know it. And for a time being, he's allowing them for the purpose that they participate in helping the gospel reach the whole world. We could tell the disciples that because we have 2,000 years of history and hindsight and theological reflection. But they didn't have it in that time, so Jesus tells them, it's not for you to know. Like, you just can't figure it out right now. Someday it'll all make sense, but right now it doesn't. So you're just going to have humility and trust me. Right? It's like there are times when you can tell your kids about being an adult and paying a mortgage and saving money and a good interest rate, but maybe when they're 6 years old isn't the time. Right? Other conversations happen when they're 6, not about a good interest rate on a loan and things like that. Right? And so maybe God's giving the disciples a version of that. Jesus is telling them, right now, it's not for you to know. And so when we come to God with questions maybe born from our political anxieties about our nation, about the future, about the world we raise our kids and grandkids in, to say that things aren't how we want them does not mean that God is doing it wrong or that God is not acting. It's just to say that it's not for us to know right now. We can't understand it. It's beyond us, and we're just going to have some humility and trust him. The second part of the answer is maybe a little more comforting to you, might be, is that he says it's not for you to know the times or periods, or some scriptures say the times and seasons that the Father has set by his own authority. So Jesus says it's not random. God isn't detached from the events of the world, but he has set them in his own authority and in his own times and seasons for his purposes, and it's not really something we can figure out. But they're in his hands, and he's asking us to trust him. So humility and trust, or humility and faith, if we would. Jesus is asking them for those two things in this moment. It is to say the same to us as we struggle with, the times and seasons we live in and why the world looks the way it does and why some things are the way they are. It's not to say they're good or bad. It's just to say they can all serve God's purpose in some capacity. Right? The story of the crucifixion is not a good story at its heart. Right? It's God coming to earth and people full of jealousy and hatred killing him when he's innocent. But out of that story, because God is ultimately, everything is under his authority, God can bring out good for all of humanity. So there's kind of how God works. Right? So we could say there are things in the course of human history and times, things going on in our times that we just don't approve of or appreciate, but we have faith that everything that happens in history doesn't escape God. It's not beyond his use or his purpose. It's not to say that it's from God. There's been some atrocities in history. We will not say, that God committed them, but that our choices, even when they're bad, under the authority of God, can be turned for his purposes, just like the crucifixion. That's a hard line to walk sometimes when we look at the state of the world. But it requires a humility that God is working at a level we don't quite understand, and a faith that he is indeed good and guiding it for the sake of his people. And then the third thing is more about what he wants us to do in this time. So rather than thinking about what their question is, Lord, at this time, will you restore the kingdom? Will you fix this political mess we're in? Will you get rid of the Romans? Will you make our nation independent again? He says, this is what I'm giving you power to be, witnesses. You will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in all Judea, Samaria, and the ends of the earth. So Jesus is saying here, they're all in Jerusalem. You'll be my witnesses here in Judea. That's like the county, right, or the state. Saying in Samaria, the place you don't like. It's like Oklahoma. It's like the place you don't want to go, right? And all the ends of the earth. You'll be my witnesses in all those places. So Jesus is telling them, what I want from you, not to fixate on the political anxieties of the day, but to try to participate in God's bigger picture for the world in this way, by being a witness to who God is to you. Now, Jesus was alive and walked among them, so they had a specific calling. They were to be witnesses of the resurrection, that they saw Jesus, that he was alive, and he was the Messiah. You and I have a specific calling. It's a little different from theirs, but it's to be a witness to who God is to us. That's the calling. That's the calling that Jesus says, you will have power to do this, strength to do this. I will give you the strength to do this calling, to be a witness. Now, if you think about witness, a witness in a courtroom is just somebody who tells you what they saw or what they heard or their experience. It's the same idea. Right? Notice Jesus doesn't say, I will give you power to be Bible experts. That's not our call. It's not everyone's call. I will give you power to be Bible experts. I will give you power to answer every question that everybody who doesn't believe in God might possibly pose to try to trip you up. That's not what God asks. That's not what Jesus says. He says, I will give you power to be witnesses where you are and in the wider world. Witnesses. Someone who could tell the story of what they've seen and heard and experienced, who God is to you. That's what he wishes to give us power to do. That's how we participate in God's plan for the whole world. Because God isn't just thinking about Israel in Jesus' day, just like God's not just thinking about our community or our town. God's thinking about all 8 billion people in the world. And the way we participate in his plan to try to reach as many as possible, which is his heart's desire, is that we're witnesses to who God is to us. That's all he asks. Not that we have to tell stories we don't know, not that we have to necessarily go to school and learn a bunch, but that we're witnesses to who God is to us, what he's done in our life. I want to just share a story. I've mentioned this to some of you in Bible study, so forgive me if I'm repeating it. But there are times in my ministry where I've gotten calls from somebody who has a family member that's doubting. And the family member that's doubting, it's usually a teenager. No offense, teenagers. It's a good time to ask questions, right? But it's usually like someone in their teenagers, but sometimes it's college age, early 20s, and they'll be doubting, and they'll say, my child's asking a bunch of questions about this. Can you talk to them? And my answer is always the same. I said, yes, I will, but before I talk to them, will you talk to them and explain why you believe what you believe? And they said, well, I don't know if I'll have the right answers. So you don't need to have the right answers. You just need to be a witness. You need to explain why you believe it. That's all. Why you believe it. And I will say probably 8 times out of 10, I will get a follow-up text that sounds something like this. Okay, I did what you said. Last night we had dinner, and I said, let's talk. Here's why I believe this. And we had a great conversation, and they said, oh, okay, great. And they were fine. And a lot of the doubts, not to say that we still didn't ask questions, but they weren't as prevalent. Because they weren't looking for information. They wanted to know why the people important in their life believed this. They needed a witness. And probably 2 out of 10 times I will get something like this. I don't really feel comfortable doing that. And I said, well, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, I'm happy to talk with them, but I want you to know why they're asking you first is because you're the most important person weighing in on this. So I'm happy to talk, but they're going to need to hear something from you. And sadly, in one case, somebody said, well, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I'm just going to tell them when they go to college to take a religion class. That's a true story. You can imagine that young man is not a believer today. His parents could not give them, could not witness to why they believed. So I want to just close today with encouraging you to not underestimate your role as a witness to who God is to you. Whatever your story might be. You might think, well, I don't have a great story. I don't have an amazing story. I don't have one of these stories where I overcame all this hardship and whatever. It doesn't matter. Your story is your witness. And Jesus' promise in the story is that God gives us the power to be witnesses in Jerusalem, right, where we live, in the wider area, and in places we couldn't even imagine. He gives us the power to be witnesses. Don't ever underestimate the importance of your witness. Don't disregard it. Don't think it doesn't mean anything. You might be the one person, you might be that one, you think about the scales, right? You might be that last thing that someone might need to kind of push them over from being a doubter to a believer, from being a skeptic to having faith, from death to life. Could be your witness. So don't underestimate it. God gave you a witness. Everyone has a story to tell. Everyone is called to be a witness. And God promises to give us the power to be a witness when we look for opportunities to do so. It doesn't mean we just walk up to people on the street and we say, hey, let me tell you what God's done for me. But in your life, there will be an opportunity when you can be a witness to what God has done for you. And in that moment, when we commit to it, He will give us the spirit and the power to do it. Don't ever underestimate the importance of your witness. It's how we participate in God saving the world. In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.